Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps after the Capitals blew a late lead, lost to the Florida Panthers 3-2 in Game 4 of the first round series with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Of course, we'll talk about blowing the lead, Capitals losing Game 4, but the series is tied now. Karl, first of all, going into Game 5 Wednesday night in Sunrise, first of all, kind of what do you think happened in that game? Like what led the Capitals to kind of blow that lead and then lose it in overtime?
Well, first off, I think it was a pretty good game, right?
They played decently well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think more of the playoff type hockey that everyone has come to expect, a little bit tighter checking, tight scoring games. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities given, and the ones that were given were capitalized on, right? So
Yep.
overall, I think it was a pretty good game. I think, I'm not. I think the Panthers just played better. They played tighter.
They did, yeah.
They didn't. They weren't just trying to go out there and look for easy offense and free chances, and that's what they needed to do. And unfortunately, they did it. I think they're still struggling in a couple areas there, but it was a good game. I thought the Caps were hanging on there, and like everyone said, they were inches away from closing it out and going up 3-1 with that empty netter. And I love going for that now. I think it's one of the things that has changed over the last, I don't even know, like even 5 or 6 years, where
Shooting for the empty net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teams are more willing to have guys go out there and shoot for it, right? You can ice a game just like that. And I know there's the argument on having a face off and down in your zone again, but I mean that's exactly where you started in the first place, right? So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But anyways, I think it was overall a pretty good game. We were just saying before, I was watching it from, I think, 8 rows up behind the visiting team net, and I don't love that angle. It's
tough to see the other end of the ice too, right?
It's tough to see the other end of the ice, yeah. And I like to, I guess it's just the way that I like to watch hockey is I like to watch plays develop and stuff. So it wasn't my favorite spot, but it was nice being in the wild with the fans and hearing some of the chatter that goes on. I get to hear people complaining about not shooting up close and personal instead of from on the ice. So
I know how much you love that.
It was my favorite. I almost turned around and said something to the guy to explain why they don't do that, but I figured I'd just let it go. So it was interesting though. It was pretty good atmosphere in that building.
There are times though you're watching a game and like I forget who had it last. I think it was Connor Sherry had a situation last night where he went in and looked for a pass. I'm like, put the puck on net there, because Bob at that point he was fine, but you put the puck on net, you shoot for a rebound, you might have a better chance.
Yeah, they definitely passed up a couple opportunities that I saw at our end there, where for sure they should have shot the puck. But at the same time, I guess to explain it for anybody who is listening,
first of all, for anybody in the arena, do not yell shoot, because Karl hates that.
Everybody hates
players
it.
Hate that. Yes, players hate that. Yes.
I was going to explain to the guy behind me that if somebody was just taking the puck and shooting it every single time, me as a guy who likes to block shots, I'd be licking my chops.
Yes.
Someone's just going to float one through from the blue line. Sorry. I would love that. It's an easy knockdown, that it's so hard to find a lane. Like, you got to remember that there's 3 layers of defense there. There's the shooter up top. A lot of times there's a centerman too in the middle. Yep. And then there's the defenseman there, all trying to block that shot. So a little floater has to get past a lot of people to have any sort of effect. And if you float one through just to get it past that first guy, then what I'm looking for is to knock that puck down, and my winger who was trying to block puck is gone, right? So these are things that people don't always see. And I understand, the more shots you take, the more opportunities you have at goals. But it's extremely hard to get pucks through in the NHL. That's why they say, man, this defenseman is so good at finding the lane to get the puck through. There's not that many players like that can be that level. And so it's just one of the things. But I understand the frustration, because it seems a lot easier than it is.
Yeah, and look, the Capitals did, that's a very opportunistic goal by Evgeny Kuznetsov. Oshie lays out Sam Bennett with that hit, which it might have been half a second late, but pretty clean hit. The league's not going to discipline him for. Like, that sets up the play. Ovechkin springs Kuznetsov, pretty roof goal. And at that point, place is going nuts. So you were there. Like, place is going nuts, and you're thinking, well, they got to hold on at this point. And the Capitals have been so good in those spots this season of holding on that it was just really a bad bounce off of Hathaway right to Sam Reinhart for that tying goal with 2:04 left.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny too, because if you watch that the way they're playing that 6-on-5, they're setting up shots. Guys are taking the one timers, big
Yep.
heavy shots, and then the one that ends up finding its way through was the most harmless shot of them all, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to saying, every shot's a good shot, and it's hard to get them through. But I don't even think he was, who was it, Ekblad that shot it? I don't even think he was
Yeah.
shooting at the net. I think it was going quite wide, and it just finds its way to bounce back towards it. And it's, I guess maybe it sounds a little hypocritical that you find a way to get it through, but that doesn't happen very often. That's a lucky bounce, and you're outmanned because obviously the goalie's pulled, but it's just the way it is. But I was going to say too, just kind of breaking off on something else that I find interesting is coaches are pulling the goalie so much earlier
They
now
are.
too.
Yes.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Is there some sort of analytics I don't know about
Yes.
why there is? Okay.
Hit
us with it if you know.
So there is. Remember Patrick Waugh when he was in the league a few years ago? He did it with like 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
That was extreme. So the coaches have a new on the app, the iPad on the bench. You guys have been able to see. The coaches now have a thing on there that gives you the average time that a team pulls the goalie. So like if you're leading, it automatically pops up on the app. Florida to pull goalie with like 3:04 left or whatever like their average is. So everybody kind of knows that already. So I think the whoever's trailing tends to try to beat that number. And Brunette actually said last night he almost pulled Bobrovsky's shift earlier. And remember, if he does that, then Marcus goes in on a breakaway, game over. And because then Bobrovsky had to make that pad save on Marcus on the breakaway. He was considering doing it earlier because he's just like, our team is so good 6-on-5 at doing this that I think there is something to be said. And John Cooper did it the other day, down a goal, down 2 goals, even down 3 goals. So it makes it look like more of a blowout than it actually is. But there is something to be said of more 6-on-5 time leads to fewer, like there wind up being more empty net goals eventually. But there is something in the numbers that say you are way more likely to score 6-on-5 in the last 3 to 4 minutes of a game than 5-on-5.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess the way that I look at it though is like when you're the team that's down, you have a push, right? You have a mental push.
And then
right?
Florida had that at the start of the third period last night.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be like, I would ride that as long as I can while we're still pushing, and then wait till the very end, see if we can score 5-on-5 instead of giving up an opportunity at a way easier goal against. Like all they got to do is get possession for 3 seconds, and it's a pretty easy goal. Empty net goals are relatively easy, right?
But like shooting it from 180 feet away is not easy.
It's not easy when you're under pressure. Yeah, right. I guess.
That's what I mean. Like if you're a good puck possession team and that with 6 guys on the ice, you have and 6-on-5 guys teams practice this all the time. This. Like teams practice 6-on-5 drills so often, almost every practice, all the time. If you can hold the puck in the zone on 6-on-5, then you have a better chance of scoring 6-on-5 there, like a power play, than you do giving up an empty net goal.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It's just one thing that I thought was strange. We were talking
all
about
around the playoffs.
As the game was going on too, it was there with my father-in-law, and you could see that Bob was about to come out, and he's like, "Oh, here we go again." Because we watched it the other night with Toronto and Tampa, right? And the goalie comes out, and it's like, the score gets blown up after that, and so I can see why it seem weird, and it's just one of those things that's developed. Right? The more stats that we have, the more it's developed. But yeah, anyways, it was down to the wire, and it was still good atmosphere. I hate to. I don't like to pick a fight with in-game ops ever, because they do a really good job. But I feel like we needed something in the crowd, in the stands, on the jumbotron in between the third period and overtime, and that could get the building a little bit more rocking. Because you could feel the nerves in that.
Yes.
Everybody, like the fans, live and die with this team, right? You can tell how the players are feeling a lot of times with the crowd, and vice versa. And at that point, I would have loved maybe like some throwback to the year the team won the cup, on the jumbotron, or even a bunch of overtime winning goals from the past,
right?
With some, some.
Well, didn't they do that? Didn't they show the Joel Ward overtime goal from Boston? I don't know where in the game, but like they definitely showed some of those big goals.
Yeah, I think it was because I was watching it. I'm looking at the jumbotron. It was the black screen with the Caps logo bouncing around, and the music you'd hear at Nordstrom while you're shopping around. And I'm just like, So I'm just like waiting for it. I'm like, okay, throw up some, even funny clips, something to keep,
Right.
it's like the same thing you would do in the dressing room is you want to get get the players' minds off of how big this situation is. Right. And I was just waiting for something like that. I think that would have helped the crowd a lot, and it would have started the overtime with a little bit more energy.
I think you're right. Let me throw the behind the curtain on what my night like this is, something like that on a game like that. So the way the elevator works at Cap One, I usually watch the end of regulation down in the media room. So like on television, end of the game. So I go down I went down like 4:30 last night. I go down. By the time the elevator gets down there, there's a hallway where just one TV. That you basically have to walk backwards to see the TV to get to the media room. So I see the goal happen as I'm standing there in the hallway with one of the Panthers writers. I'm just like, well, who scored? I'm like, screw it. I'm going back upstairs. I want to watch this game. And so between third period and overtime, I'm not paying attention to anything because I've got to write my Capitals win story. I got to write my Panthers win story and get my shit together because this is like for kind of a pressure situation. And I've done this in the Cup final. That's a pain in the ass. But once I had like 400 something words written on both those teams winning, I'm like, somebody can score now. And then unfortunately for the Capitals, Carter Verhaeghe scored.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I think that's neat to hear that you write one for each, right? You probably just tweak little bits here and there.
Oh no, they're two totally different stories. I'm a maniac.
Are they seriously?
Oh yeah, especially because a game like last night, it's such a big difference. It's Caps up 3-1 and Panthers on the verge of elimination versus we got a brand new series 2-2. Those entirely different circumstances.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess if you're just breaking down the game, then it's different. But if you're actually leading into the next one,
I essentially try to write as if anybody who's reading it has already watched the game or the highlights. Like anybody who's going to read it has some idea of what happened in the game. So it's like, okay, now what does it mean? Which is easier said than done sometimes, but like that's what I try to do.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, and that's the thing too, especially with deadlines and people want instant information. You gotta kind of have it there. But my
story was 450 words, like 30 seconds after the game's over.
Yeah,
that's the game here.
Everyone's like, how's he cheating? How's he do that? You dictating those or are you typing those? Do you dictate them or do you?
Oh no, I type everything out.
Have you thought about dictating it?
No, it's actually faster to type it.
Is it really?
Yeah, and the hardest part is like I'll go into the post game and I'll be transcribing as guys are talking and plugging quotes in, like sending it to the desk saying, Verhaeghe said this, throw it in the story, and we had 600 words out 15 minutes after the game was over.
Really? I guess if you're a fast typer, if you're like
the magic. Yeah. Hey, look, you know what to do on the ice. I know what to do about what's on the ice. So we're completely covered here.
And moments that are low, and you've got a opportunity to win. It didn't go our way. So I think it's always tough answering those questions. There's always disappointment that goes with that particular night. That's playoff hockey. That's a series, and the series is full of moments that are good, high, and moments that are low, and you've got to wake up every day and attack the day. And so, we've moved on from that, and we'll get back to work and travel to Florida and get ready to play tomorrow. We've been a real good road team. We like the games that we played, regular season and playoffs. We like the games that we played down in Florida, and guys have done a good job on the road. So we'll get ready to get out and battle there.
That was Capitals coach Peter Laviolette today at MedStar Capitals Iceplex. This is All's Caps, the former Capitals defenseman Carl Alzer. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Just that's got to be the perspective, right, Carl? Like just put to bed game 4, and this team has played very well on the road.
Yeah, that's it. There's momentum in games, but there shouldn't be any momentum from game to game, right? Everything needs to be put to bed and you move on. But it's like what we said, you win a game, you're up 2-1 and you've got the series in 5, no problem. And then you lose one. It's like, oh no, now we're going to lose. It's exactly the way it works. And it's how good the team is at being able to put that to bed and moving on. So I just like you said, though, they've been solid on the road. There's no need to change anything from what they've been doing. It's you're still battling a really good hockey team when they want to be. So stick with it. So it's just, it just sucks to lose in overtime, right? Being right there, it's just brutal, but it happens. And I think it's what a true hockey fan wants to see is a good series with close games and everybody's kind of on the edge of their seat with a little bit of adrenaline going. So I think most people are happy about that.
You could argue this is the most entertaining series there is in terms of the games have been mostly close. I mean, the Capitals had the one blowout win, the one blowout loss, but you've had the close game in game one with the empty netter. You had the close game in game four. It's been entertaining.
It for sure has been entertaining. I think there's been some action too after the whistles, some pretty good hits. It's overall a pretty good series. I mean, there's a couple other ones that I think the Calgary Dallas one's been.
That's been big boy hockey.
Yeah, that's playoff hockey right there. You know, that's Sutter brand hockey. He's fired up about it. The city's fired up. So that's another series. I think that's pretty interesting. But yeah, this is you know, I guess even the New York series has been really good. There's always good. It's hot. It's playoff hockey.
It's the first round. It's fun.
Yeah, it's the best round. It's the most entertaining round. Everybody's really happy. There's lots of fans because there's lots of skin in the game. So it's good stuff. But yeah, the series itself is I still think the Caps are in a great spot to win this right now. So I'm still on team Capitals. But at least it's going to be a little bit longer than what we thought after game 3.
I want to look up what the odds are for the Capitals of winning the series, like what you can get the bet on right now. I'm going to look that up right now. But yeah. I want to tell. Okay, so let's say you're in that Capitals locker room last night. You're leading the game. You give up a goal with 2:04 left. What's the mood in the locker room in a situation like that where you give up a late goal? I guess I don't want to bring up bad memories, but that game in New York you guys had where Beeks broke his foot, Joel Ward takes the double minor, and then you take the tying goal like really late. And then, but then it was still, you guys were on the penalty kill again. It wasn't quite that stark, but what is it like to be in a locker room when you give up a lead that late and you're that close to being up 3-1 in a series?
It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. As tough as you are mentally, it's hard not to at least think for a second, like, oh man, like we were so close, because you're looking for any edge you can get in the playoffs, right? If you can end a game in regulation and not have to go to overtime and get up an extra game on a team, like you're looking for those edges, right? And if you just narrowly missed getting that, it's very frustrating. And then the good teams right after that are able to completely forget about it and get back into it, and us in that specific situation, I think we were still on the penalty kill going into overtime. That's not the position you really want to be in at all, but it happens sometimes, and you got to find a way to get out of it. But same thing with last game. It's a team with enough experience, negatively and positively, to be able to get out of that situation. And just unfortunately it didn't work out. But that was one of the comments that I was so curious to see about. They're saying Florida needs to do some growing up, and I totally agree with that. They have older players, but there's one thing to be said for being grown up in the playoffs and regular season, and some teams just aren't there, and that it's a very, very hard mental grind in the playoffs. And so unfortunately for the Caps, it was probably a good teaching moment for them, a good learning moment, but it's not something that the team's going to go. Just the Caps are just going to roll over and let Florida do their thing.
Right. So right now, it plus 240 on the Capitals to win the series. So that means a $50 bet wins you 120. And that's pretty good odds for a team that's played as well on the road as the Capitals have. And to me, it's a coin flip series. I mean, if the Panthers have found themselves and they get their power play clicking, the Panthers are going to win the series. If the Capitals are managed to keep the Panthers at scoring 5-on-5 goals, because other than that overtime goal last night, the Panthers scored 4-on-4 and 6-on-5. So the Capitals have been so good on the penalty kill and at 5-on-5 defense. If the Capitals are able to contain the Panthers that way, they're going to win the series. Yeah,
that's exactly it. I mean, there's been so much special teams in this series, right? You said it earlier to me, and it's true. Like we just want to watch some more 5-on-5 hockey. We want to see who's the team that's going to win it like that. I mean, we go back to the year Boston won, right? It's the entire series that Boston played Tampa was power play, penalty kill, power play, and Tampa was so good on special teams that year. And then all of a sudden, Game 7. The refs decided not to call anything, and Boston was better 5-on-5, and they win that series and win the cup. It's just some teams are built certain ways, and I guess as the opponent, knowing that, right, knowing if a team is very good special team, then stay away from penalties, and then vice versa. So it's just things can change so quick. But I'm mean, those are pretty good odds for the Caps. I think that's worth a $50 bet. And hopefully everybody knows by now, don't listen to me for betting advice. People were asking
This is
me,
not a betting podcast. We're not giving betting advice. I'm just telling you what the odds are.
exactly.
Don't bet on hockey, kids. It's a terrible idea.
Yes, people were asking me before the game when I was out there at the Caps fan van, meeting some of the fans walking in. They were all asking me who's going to score the first goal. You know, what's the series going to be, this and that. And I'm like, hey, you can listen to me if you want, but I'm going to be the first one to admit that this is not my thing. And so yeah, it's just whatever. But anyways, good odds. It sounds like it'd be worth the $50 bet.
Yeah. And I mentioned the officiating thing. So last night, I'm looking at the numbers now, only 44 or so minutes of that game were played at 5-on-5. And 13 minor penalties called in the first 35 minutes. It just feels like, and I'm not saying any kind of bias. I just think there's been, and then coaches around the league are saying this, GMs and all that there's just a little bit of over officiating going on. Maybe some overcompensation from officials who we all been saying, well, you don't call anything in the playoffs and this and that. That referees were told, call it like the regular season. I think there's just a little more ticky-tack calls that are unnecessary, making it too many power plays and penalty kills than we'd like to see.
Yeah, and I get it. Call it like the regular season because that's what everybody's used to. But at the same time, like the games are more intense. Like people want to see who the best team is 5-on-5, even though some teams are geared towards, being better on the power play and stuff. I just kind of like to see the game get played without guys worrying about what they can and can't do and if it's going to change game to game, right? Everybody typically knows that playoffs things get swept under the rug a little bit more.
And they used to. This postseason's been a little different.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of a sudden it's different and it's hard to adjust, right? Like you want to have that emotion, right? And that emotion comes usually from things that can, maybe ride outside the lines every now and then. So I don't know. I would rather the refs kind of stay out of it a little bit more, but the league wants things done a certain way and the team needs to adapt as fast as possible. So it's just, I don't know, it's whatever at this point, but I like 5-on-5 hockey. So hopefully we can get some more of that, but that would be the thing that would be unfortunate is all of a sudden it changes to, you get away with a few more things and the players don't know what to expect. Right. So it's kind of it's a balance there, but like even the thing with TJ's hit, I
thought it was a half a second late, but I don't think it was dirty.
Yeah. People are kind of for the I think they're more on the side of, they think that it was dirty, but I don't think it was dirty either. Right. It's the maybe one frame of 30 frames. It looks like it might be dirty, but we can't be slowing things down like that. Things happen fast. I think you can see on the extension of his arm, like
he didn't put his arm up.
Exactly. Right. Like it was a good hit from a player that maybe was unsuspecting, but wasn't not worthy of getting hit, like it's still a fine position to be hit. So I don't think that there was an issue, but it looks at the time, the reaction of the player and all that it could be, but I think it was fine. I think it was a great playoff hit.
Big hit, and you could even see Bennett's stick, his own stick gets him and knocks the helmet off. That's the reason why that happened. So it was kind of a lot of circumstances that led to it. It was a big hit. Like at the moment, You're like, it was one of those whoa as you're watching it hits, and then all of a sudden Kuznetsov goes down and scores.
Yeah, exactly. It's the reaction that happens, a lot of times where the penalty is called, right? Even was it the game before that was called on Weaver? It was a trip after he lost the puck
on the power play when he was trying to obstruct on basically what would have been a shorthanded break.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you look at it, it was actually his stick got stepped on. Right. And it was nothing that he did wrong. It wasn't a penalty, right? But the things happen fast, and there's a reaction from the ref, and it's something that they look at after the game and realize, oh crap, I missed one. But it's such a hard job to do, and
they're really good. By the way, like once you go see international officials and go to the Olympics and World Championships, you realize how good NHL refs are. So this is not a knock on the quality of NHL officials, because people like to rip that a lot. NHL officials are really damn good at their job.
Extremely good. Like there's so much that's happening that fast to be able to get as close to being perfect that they are on offside calls, on icings, all that stuff. Like to know if a puck gets tipped, I would always try and mess with the refs and say that the puck wasn't tipped or was tipped and stuff. And 9 times out of 10, more like 19 times out of 20 that they would have it right. There'd be occasionally where I would would shoot a puck over the glass, or someone would shoot it over the glass, and I would come up like calm and just say, no, that was tipped. And the linesman would go, was it actually? I'm like, yeah, it was actually. And they'd call, no penalty. And then they look at it after in between periods, and the guy would come up to me like, man, why did you do that? Like, how am I supposed to trust you again? Because you said it was. I'm like, sorry, we really could not have a penalty there. And they're good at it, and you try and get on their good side so that they'll give you a break here and there. But they're so good at not having any bias that it's tough to get around.
That Ben Sherratt puck over the glass last night and in game 4, like we saw that. I thought it was rim around the boards, and we didn't even see that it just went right over the glass.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know how they can change what they're paying attention to so fast, right? Like you're looking for penalties, you're looking for offsides, all of a sudden a puck goes out, who touched it last, all these things, and they're just spot on. I hats off, because people give them a lot of shit, and they don't deserve as much shit as they get.
Right. So as much as we criticize kind of things, we realize refs are very, very good at their jobs. When we come back on All Caps, we'll hear from Justin Schultz also today at MedStar Capitals Iceplex, looking ahead to Game 5 and talk about what the Capitals need to do now in a best of 3 to win the series.
Obviously, I think everyone understands that wasn't our best effort last night. We can play faster and get back to the way we played the first 3 games. Even in Game 2, I thought we played pretty well. It's stretches that we didn't, that they capitalized on, but I thought we've had a good series so far, and we knew it was going to be a long, hard-fought series, so we're looking forward to the next game.
That was Capitals defenseman Justin Schultz at MedStar Capitals Iceplex. Capitals didn't really skate today. Off day, most of the scratches skated. This is All Caps, the former Capitals defenseman Carl Alzer. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Carl, I mean, that's right? Like everyone expected this to be a long series. Everybody who didn't pick the Panthers in 5 in this series expected to be a long series, right? Like the Capitals have to feel pretty confident about what they've done in this series.
Yeah, without a doubt, they do. I mean, I think as Caps fans, we knew that they had it in them, but we didn't know exactly how, if that was going to be possible until the first game of the series. And then we saw it, for ourselves, and realized that, yeah, okay, this is going to go more of a direction that we think it's going to go in. And it's interesting to hear him say that they don't think that they played all that good, because I think for the most part it looked like they played okay, but that's just how high their expectations are, right? And what they know that they can do. So it's kind of nice to hear that from them, knowing there's another gear there, and how much of the credit goes to Florida, and how much of it goes to them, just the Caps just not playing the way that they wanted to play. So it's just neat to hear the players' perspective, especially after the coach comes in too. It's always nice when the coach comes in, and because they can give you a bit different of a view from behind the bench than you can being on the ice, right? You get caught up in certain things on the ice, so the coaches going in to talk to them is kind of nice. I'm not sure what Lavi does after.
He doesn't go in.
Yeah, he doesn't go in. So then there you go. Just based off of what Schultz saw and how he felt. So it's neat to hear. But I think that they're still in a great position. Like going on, it's funny. They're like the opposite of most teams. They're going on the road and they're happy, right? They're good,
right?
Good road team here, and normally you want to be in your own building. So I think everything's looking pretty good.
The other thing, Carl, I think the pressure's on the Panthers, right? Like everyone's picked Florida to win the series. They're the President's Trophy winners, even with home ice. Now you're going to have that building feeling nervous if something like that happens on Game 5.
Oh, for sure. There should be zero pressure on the Caps, right? They have, I guess they have their own internal pressures of how they want to play and stuff. But if the Panthers don't win, it's, they already had questions after losing last year to Tampa, even though Tampa's, they went on to win. Still, they felt like they should have won. So, if it happens again, like we know what it's like. And I think I saw the stat yesterday too. It's the last 8 President's Cup trophy winners, right? There was a loss in the first round, 6 in the second, and 1 in the third round, right? It's just a hard road, and you have expectations going into the playoffs of how things are supposed to go, and then they don't go your way, and this happens, right? You start asking questions why, and it's hard to battle through things that aren't happening the way that they're supposed to happen. You're the best team in the league, right? And so, Florida's in that position right now, so they without a doubt feel that pressure.
And Ben Raby had a great stat the other day about the Panthers, and basically the winning streak they had late in the season. They weren't playing a whole lot of playoff teams,
Yeah.
So he said the 13-game winning streak they had at the end of the season, 10 of those were against non-playoff teams, which I guess gives them kind of an inflated record and an inflated sense of confidence going into the playoffs.
Yeah. That's like the good thing and the bad thing with the end of the year and having an easy schedule, right? Is you can pad your stats and get some points to mess with your positioning and maybe get home ice advantage. But at the same time, then you don't get that test that you're hoping for leading into it, right? Like you like to play the team that you're going to be playing in the playoffs.
The kind of team, sure, right?
Yeah. And I think they even said too, they played the Caps. When was it, in November?
Yeah, it was the last game was like November 30th or something like that.
Yeah, so they hadn't seen each other for so long, so it's so hard to measure yourself up against that team. You don't have video of you playing them that's relevant. So I'm sure lots of things have changed in both team styles leading up to that game. So it's tough, but yeah, it could also be that thing where you need to face a little bit of adversity and then all of a sudden you just go nuts, right? Like the Caps did when they won. I don't know. I guess they're just working through it right now, but we're hoping that they can continue to stay sleeping a little bit.
I don't want to dwell on this because it's a hypothetical, but the Capitals, if they had not kind of laid an egg in those two Islanders games, they'd be playing the Rangers now. And the Rangers don't look all that scary. Igor has kind of blown up the past couple of games. And now you got a tougher Florida team where maybe the Rangers would have been an easier matchup. We're not in that spot, but it kind of is a tough lesson that maybe they get 3 points out of those two games. All of a sudden it's a Rangers series and they might be up 3-1 like the Penguins are.
Yeah, it's possible. If we will never know exactly.
We'll never know, right? Yeah, that's why I don't want to dwell too much on it, but that's what I started thinking.
Yeah, I will say this though about the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I don't like giving them credit for anything, but they are a really good team at home in the playoffs. They're so hard to play against. They're that team that you never feel like they're out of a game or a series, right? They seem to be so good at just turning the page and coming back with another effort. So I'm not really all that surprised that series is that way. I would love to see the Rangers keep going because that building is really fun. And I think that would be it'd be a good team. It's good. It's a good team for the league to have them play as long as possible. They're good for HRR and as a player, you're always thinking about HRR. And since I'm still being paid by Montreal, I'm still thinking about HRR. So it would be nice if they could find a way to get into that series and keep going. But that's one of the only times I'll pat Pittsburgh on the back.
Of course. One last thing before we go here. The Capitals win this series if what?
I think the Capitals win this series if Florida continues to not be good on the power play and the Caps continue to be good on the penalty kill. And if they minimize those mistakes, there was on Florida's first goal, there was one, I think it was a pinch, that led to an odd man rush.
2-on-1, yeah.
That's all it takes, right? Like they didn't really have many of those in the first few games. So I'd say that and even on the overtime goal, and I don't think it's not like a glaring mistake, but McMichael finds a way to get that puck deep going up the wall instead of making a play towards the middle. It completely changes the play. So it's just those tiny little things that happen. So that's my opinion. I'd love to bounce that back to you and see what you think.
I'm gonna say those things basically. If the Capitals keep the Panthers from scoring at 5-on-5 is the biggest thing, because I think that the power play is gonna break through at some point for Florida. I think they're just due at some point to score on the power play. But I think if the Capitals can keep the Panthers from scoring consistently at 5-on-5, and a big part of that is Samsonov and those Sammy chants. I don't remember before Game 3 of this series ever hearing that in that building, and now to hear it often, like the crowd is behind Ilya Samsonov, and now I started wondering. I'm talking to my friends after the game. I'm like, is he their goalie next year? Like, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but like, is Samsonov back to being that guy? And I think if Samsonov continues to play as well as he has, the Capitals have a good chance of winning the series.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's it. It's what have you done for me lately? That's usually what ends up keeping guys around. And so that was actually the conversation we had earlier in the day, just with, a player all of a sudden does really good in the playoffs and now they become too expensive to bring back the next year. Right. And it's just what people remember last. So I think you're right. Sammy can be a big factor in this series if he continues to play as good as he is and playing with passion, which I think is what he's playing with right now, wanting to prove people wrong and prove people right, the ones that have been on his side. So yeah, I think you're right, but man, am I happy for some more hockey games to watch.
Yeah. Were you on the pregame show last night?
I was for one segment, about 15 minutes of it. And I double earplugged so I could actually hear what was going on. So that was kind of nice. I didn't hear a single thing the last time. So we did one of those. We highlighted JoJo in that segment that I was into, which I think is very deserving. He's been really solid.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been, I think we talked about it too, right? Like where was he gonna slot in? We had him possibly being out, like depending on what was going on. And then all of a sudden
you don't trade for him to sit him out, but I wonder where he was going to fit top 9, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And now look what he's done. Like he's been, having Tom out of the lineup. I mean, we don't know exactly how the series changes with him in, but having him out of the lineup hasn't really hurt the team at all. Right. Like Mantha stepped up. He's played really well. Ovi's been more physical than normal. JoJo's been unbelievable. Sherry's been great. Like lots of other players have been able to fill that void. So we don't know, if Tom comes in, do the games get more heated? Is there more contact, even more stuff after the whistles? We don't know. Does that, detract from the game? That would be like the only negative, having him in the lineup maybe, but he's smart enough in the playoffs to know not to get too crazy. So I think that would be the only thing, but having him back, we no clue how this series changes. Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't get too optimistic about seeing Tom Wilson in this series.
No, I don't think he's even gone on the ice. Right. So I think they're hoping that they can get through this, let him rest up, and then maybe come back. So it's unfortunate. I understand the playoff injuries all too well now. So it's a tough spot to be in as a player, but it's hard as the team too.
Yeah, I think the Capitals are going to have to win this series without Tom Wilson, but everybody enjoy Game 5. We have at least 2 games left in the series, a Game 6 at home on Friday. Karl, thanks for this, and thanks everybody for listening to Allscaps. This is AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner, the host of the Allscaps podcast on Empire Media.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody that's tuning in to the All's Caps podcast on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to try and get as much going as we can.
Well, we love doing the video stuff. I hope you also get a chance to listen to the John Keim report about the Washington Commanders. We're going to have John on at some point and do some cross promotion, but please stay tuned to everything that we have on Empire Media, on YouTube, and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.